The only thing better than a reaction video is, of course, a reaction to a reaction video. So in this video, I'm going to be reacting to Steelcast27's reaction video on my original Automobilista 2 3 physics issues that stopped me from playing Automobilista 2 video. This is literally peak YouTube here, so as a result, before making a cup of tea to watch this video, make sure you microwave your head, because that allows you to enjoy YouTube a lot better. But here we go for my first ever reaction to a reaction video. Welcome back to the Game of Muscle YouTube channel. Click that like button and subscribe if you enjoy low quality content. So, Steelcast27, I've not watched his video yet. I saw it pop up. Some people messaged it to me on Discord because I've got spies on the internet, and I think it also popped up in the related videos because there's only like 4 people making AMS2 content. Before I get into this, I will say, actually, I really appreciate this guy going to the effort of doing a rebuttal video. I did watch like the first sort of 5 minutes of it, and you know, it's not like it's not like a crappy video. It's like a guy has gone to the effort of actually going through the points that I've made, or it seems that way. Maybe halfway through the video he just starts swearing at me. I don't know, but personally, I really like discussion on things, and like, I know when it comes to like specific car setup stuff and the intricacies of simulation or anything, to be honest, I know I'm a bit of an idiot, and I don't know a lot of stuff. And the way you learn things is you have a conversation, and if someone disagrees with you and they present information, well, that makes you more knowledgeable yourself, because you're like, oh, that information's good, I'll take that on board. If they disagree with you or agree with you but can give you a more rounded view of things, well, it reinforces what you already knew and helps develop what you're understanding again. There's this weird culture at the moment where everything has to be super anodyne, and people get really offended if there's anything marginally confrontational, and it's mental. It's like, no, you should have conversations as long as you're not punching people in the face. And as long as you're like somewhat civil, you don't even have to be that civil. If someone's got a good point, they've got a good point. I don't care if they're being civil, but you know, as long as someone's not being physically violent, it's all good generally. So yeah, let's get into this. I just wanted to start that with, actually, I really appreciate this guy going to the effort and suffering my content. I appreciate all you guys suffering my content as well. You should all get a medal or see a doctor. Right, let's get going with this video here. Steelcast27.
Welcome back to the 27, and oh so soon.
Hang on, first things first, he's got the 27.
So this is enough.
He's got his own little thing going there. I'm the 7. Although, to be fair, 27's got a 7 in it. I'm starting to like this guy.
Another opportunity for a rebuttal video. If you can recall, last week I had one with Ermin.
Hang on, I've got to interrupt things here. Before we go into his, Ermin obviously did a video. By the way, you guys might not know this, but I actually mute other sim racing channels on my thing. Like any sort of more established sim racing channel, I mute the content. I don't want to watch their videos. I don't want to know what they're saying, because I don't want it to affect what I say. And I don't want to be in a situation where I don't make a video that I would have made otherwise because someone else has made a video. So I literally, almost all YouTube channels are muted. There's a couple of exceptions, and I do sometimes watch live streams and stuff, but yeah, for YouTube I mostly mute people. But separate to that, I like how he's got me. I'm sorry, which one are you? He's got 1, 2, 3 Game of Muscle videos in his sidebar, so maybe he's watched my content, maybe he's a viewer. That's terrible. 3 of me in your sidebar. That's like a hell I wouldn't want to live in. He's got a Jimmy Broadbent. You can't have a sim racing video without a Jimmy Broadbent. Still, he's got one of his own videos. Doug DeMero. Good. That's you know, his video's a nice review video, so this guy's got some taste there. Top Gear. No, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Oh no, hang on, he's got another game of I hope he doesn't hate me, because he's been invaded by Game of Muscle content. No wonder he's upset. If he is, maybe he isn't. Let's keep going. Let's get on with this. Go.
And that kind of galvanized, I guess, the AMS2 community to a certain degree. I got a lot of support from a lot of different people.
Okay, so I guess he rebutted Ermin's video. I didn't know if Ermin's video was positive or negative. I guess Ermin probably said negative stuff, and then he rebutted that, and then the AMS2 fans have loved him for rebutting whatever he did there. Right, well, I'm going to fast forward a bit here because it just noticed his video is 47 minutes long.
And we have this video that came out.
Jesus, 47 minutes. I mean, I guess he's just talking, and my video is probably going to be long as well. You know, who's got a life these days? I certainly haven't.
Almost a week later, exactly. Completely different style and presentation.
Completely different style and presentation. Shit.
In Ermin,
I don't think he was saying that, but it's pretty funny.
It was more organized in presentation style.
Yeah, Ermin's got huge muscles as well. I haven't got that, ironically.
Gamers is more sort of like a stream of consciousness kind of thing. But
stream of consciousness, stream of shit. Right, keep going.
He's listed, or he's going to mention or talk about 3 physics issues with AMS2 that prevents him from playing or otherwise enjoying a fantastic sim. So I'm going to play this video and interject where I see fit. But yeah, let's begin and then
interjection. So with that out of the way, the first thing that I want to talk about, and the first handling
and I skipped the
characteristic
intro
that's
too.
Very different from other sims. Oh, I didn't skip your intro, mate. You can't skip the intro. Okay, maybe you can. Is, of course, the one I keep going on about, the rear differential in Automobilista 2. So any car that has rear differential options, this doesn't actually apply to cars that don't have rear differential options, don't seem to have this problem so much.
Clever guy,
but
that.
any car that has a limited slip differential options on the rear diff, regardless of the diff settings,
Good background lighting.
you don't seem to be able to get subtle lift-off oversteer or like coast lift-off oversteer. Now, as you can see here, what I've done with this
Okay, so yeah, Gamers is pretty famous for wanting this feature in AMS2, and he's claimed in the past that AMS2 does it, and it's not. It's simply not the case.
Whoa, we've got a contention. Right. So the lift-off oversteer thing, to be clear, I think it's like not snap lift-off oversteer. You know, a little bit of you lift off and the back oversteers a bit. That's in every simulator, so it's not. You know, I don't think it's unreasonable to think, oh, that should be in every simulator if it's in every other simulator. But anyway,
there's a lot of cars in AMS2 that have lift-off oversteer.
Right, I need to see a video of a car in Automobilista 2 with not snap lift off oversteer or snap oversteer, turning into a corner, and if there's you can control the back of the car, especially with an open diff. I'd like to see a video of that.
Of the variety that he wants, and then also the snap variety, which is, you know, the number one source of number one topic with regards to a lot of front wheel or front engine cars. Lift-off oversteer that's in the snap variety is actually a big negative
Agree.
for racing. Gamer is looking for, you know, this subtle rotation mid-corner,
sexy
when you come off the throttle, when you overcook a corner, presumably.
No, not when you overcook the corner. It's when you're modulating. You're modulating the car through the corner. Like, sure, if you're absolutely nailing it, then maybe you won't have to do that much modulation. But let's say you're in a race and you're driving side by side with another car. There's always constant little adjustments in there. So it's not about overcooking it. It's about just having that constant, always direct connection with the vehicle, and in all situations having some degree of control over it that's quite subtle and detailed. That makes driving very satisfying and makes you feel like you're really in control, which from a gameplay perspective, regardless of realism, but I think it's also probably realistic, that's what makes a car more enjoyable than another car, the more control you have of it.
And it's featured in, I know it's featured in ACC because I've seen him, you know, casually driving a race with one hand and he's getting it.
It sums up the channel, casually whilst chatting and drinking tea.
But he's claiming it doesn't exist in the.
It's in every simulator. It's Live for Speed, AC1, ACC, iRacing, R Factor 2. I can't think of a simulator or a race room. I can't think of a sim where there isn't a subtle lift off oversteer with when you set the diff very open on any car.
MS2, and that's not the case. Now, let's see how he proceeds with this and complete his thought process.
This is a Porsche GT3 car. I have effectively made the diff.
Not the best car to test lift off oversteer of the variety he's looking for.
As well, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but the reason why I picked the Porsche in this case is because I actually had AC running in the background as well, and I wanted to go side to side with different games and actually show it properly, but I was having trouble going from game to game and doing things quickly, so I was being lazy on the video side, and really I was just using this as a background video whilst driving to explain the issue that was going on. I mean, as I say, from every car I've driven in Automobilista 2, it's with the diff settings on them. It's a problem. Like none of the cars actually have the subtle lift off oversteer, so it wouldn't really matter which car I picked. Like it'd be more of a less degree with any car. Also, we've gone absolutely mental on the open diff there. Like we're not talking subtles here, and I'm not after like super subtle stuff. When I make a video, I know I'm not that good. I'm a bit of an idiot. I'm not the best. So I'm not being hypercritical of the car handling. When I'm putting something out in a video, it's something that's very, very, very obvious that I think most people would draw attention to. It's not like esports degree of nitpicky. Open as possible. You can't turn it off completely. In Automobilista 2, relative to other simulators, is that the rear of the car, even to what effectively
the default.
I'll clip it. I'll try to skip through this a bit so you're not dying of old age, guys.
Their sim racing titles, and number one, he's driving a car that's notorious for understeer.
Okay, well, we've addressed that point, so don't need to say that again.
In real life, other sim racing titles, and in AMS2. On top of that, the default package setup for
okay, so we're talking about setup here. Before I actually went and did this, keep in mind we have driven all the other cars, and also I've done stuff like gone absolutely mental with like making the rear completely stiff or completely loose, or I've also used setups from AMS2 fanboys and recommended setups. It's not like I've just done it in this one video. This is based off I don't know, like 90 plus hours of Automobilista 2 driving. I enjoy playing Automobilista 2. We've done a lot of live streams with it. It's not really based off this one case with this car. This is me just having background content whilst I talk about some issues that repeatedly come up, so I don't have to talk about them in a live stream again. But we'll continue.
The Porsche in AMS2 it favors stability. So you're going to get a lot of understeer characteristics out of the box with the Porsche GT3R for sure. And the solution for a lot of this understeer is not necessarily the diff. Now, I can't say that the diff isn't one of the things that you want to look at and talk about when talking about turning inability and whether or not the rear wants to break free. It's more of a problem with the mechanical grip of the car and the natural characteristics of the Porsche. Now, generally speaking, the Porsche by its nature is a deep braking car, a really quick snap kind of cornering, and then a power through a late apex kind of car. It's not one of those cars that you want to attack the corner and it'll just stick while you go around. It's not one of those things. You want to go straight, corner sharply, and then attack the late apex.
Okay, so I don't necessarily disagree with him. I think I even said in the video, in terms of car setup, when I say, there's a diff issue, that is based off the fact that if you open the diff to those degrees in other simulators, you would get massive amount of lift off oversteer. So what happened was I played Automobilista 2. It seems like there's very limited usable lift-off oversteer with any car that has a diff setting, and the first thing that I would go to address that with any simulator would be to look at maybe the diff, or maybe the some of the like ARB settings. There's probably, there's loads of reasons why a simulated car may or may not work in various ways, and intricacies of setup and car specific stuff. That's all great. That's fine. I don't disagree with that. I think I even mentioned that in the video, but the point of this was more like, I have just opened the diff entirely, and we've done this with other cars as well, and you still don't get any like subtle lift off oversteer. You have to get to the mechanical grip, and then it does snap oversteer. You're really in this sort of aggressive, snappy handling characteristics of the car, rather than having a subtle play to it before stuff starts getting very overly active. As to his comments on how a Porsche drives, and then that he may or may not be right in real life. I've never driven a Porsche in real life. So, I mean, I don't know. You look at videos online, which is the next thing to go to. It's very hard to tell physics from videos online. It seems to me like the thing with a Porsche is that actually, and I've spoken to real-world Porsche driver coaches and pro Porsche drivers, the car is a very rotatey car. There'll be different Porsches, obviously. I mean, drive the Porsche Cup compared to a GT3 Porsche and what have you, or the RSR. But Porsches, one of the reasons why Porsches have like such an appeal to me, and why I think they've got an appeal generally, is of all vehicles, they're balanced so that you have the degree of control to them. The way he's describing the handling is how I would describe how Ferraris tend to drive, like Ferrari GT cars, where they are more kind of planky and abrupt, and it's more about the on-throttle powering out of the corner, going in deep, and not about doing subtle turning. So from my view, based on all the other simulators, which could all be wrong, my interpretation of videos, which could be wrong, and my talking to real-world drivers, which I could have misinterpreted what they said, my view is that Porsches are actually quite pliable, neutral, and rolly cars, and you really have to work with the mass of the vehicle with a Porsche, and that is kind of like the attraction to Porsches for drivers. That's what they go for. So I'd probably disagree with his interpretation of what a Porsche should drive like. But at the same time, I don't really care if the Porsche what a real world Porsche drives like. It's like, what's it like in the game, and is it fun and nimble? And to me, any car, if you open the diff massively, should have some degree of subtle lift off oversteer. All cars, to varying extents, should have a degree of subtlety to them before you start getting super aggressive with the driving. But hey, that's my view of it. People might disagree with that.
Tracks like Silverstone don't really do the Porsche GT3R any favors. It also suffers at high speed cornering. It just simply does not turn in. It doesn't have a front splitter, so the aero is limited. And it's really it's such a stable car in the rear that it's just going to push through any high speed section. So you really have to approach the car with a different mindset, setup wise, to with the suspension tab, not necessarily the differential tab. Differential tab is one of the things that I would use for fine tuning. But generally speaking, with GT3Rs, you want to set it to like these just normal settings that you would set GT3Rs to, or I'm sorry, GT3s, which is like a 60-40, 70-50 max. Those are the two primary differentials. You don't really have to go crazy with them, and you're not gonna, create or lose lift-off oversteer with those two settings that I just mentioned. You're gonna create or lose them, or get rid of them with the suspension tab. So yeah.
Rather than the turn. Okay, so I don't necessarily disagree with him there, and that is a good point that he's saying. And again, I think I kind of went through it in the original video. The rear diff might not actually be the correct thing to solve it. That's just my experience with other sims. I don't disagree with him. Maybe suspension, hardening the suspension, doing all the other stuff to it, might be a better way to get more subtle lift off oversteer. So I'll definitely try that out. The thing with the car setups with the Sims, it's like I think this guy is probably more experienced with the AMS2 than other simulators, so there's a good chance that what he's saying about AMS2 is true. So the point I'm trying to make is, if I was looking at a sim, I rather than going, okay, what would the real car do? What would a real car like to do? What would be the setup thing for a real car? I'd go, right, each sim is its own game. What is the solution to resolve the issue with each game? And find that and then try it. So I will try what he said. We'll give it a go. I've tried pro setups before, it didn't resolve anything, and balanced setups didn't resolve anything. But, you know, he might be right on that. As for this Silverstone comment, the reason why I think Silverstone is a really good test track for a lot of cars is that it's got the prolonged corners, short corners, and it's mostly flat. So when you're looking at how the car responds to corners and things, and the baseline dynamics, Silverstone is really good without other stuff getting in the way. Obviously, his point about high speed, there's a lot of high speed corners, and obviously if a car has a lot of downforce or specific aspects to it that are affected by the downforce of high speed, then you're not going to notice the other aspects of the characteristic. And obviously it's not hilly, so you're not going to notice specific hilly or bumpiness characteristics. It's quite a flat track, but that's why I like to use Silverstone. But we weren't really doing sophisticated testing in this video anyway. But turning being my rebuttal, the rotation of the vehicle due to the, and the result is
bump dampers, the slow ones, and then they also put in really stiff front rebound slow dampers. That just leads itself to understeer. With the Porsche, it's already naturally understeery, so it really compounds the issue.
Like, this diff is as open as it will go.
Well, the car is leaning back on its haunches, and the car just doesn't have enough weight on the front. Like the fronts are just like kind of gently grabbing the tarmac, whereas the rears are just stuck. So yeah, you have to drive the car in a particular way.
Effectively, I've moved the brake bias really far back, and I am having to really get on the brakes to turn the car in. I'm really having to get onto the limit to just get the car to turn in.
The brake bias technique is what people have done as a quick fix to the stability of all of the builds on the default package builds. Traditionally, they're getting a lot better now. But what the brake bias does is allows the player to control when the rear of the car breaks loose, and that adds the rotation that they want. Now, arguably, there's a lot of fast, default drivers out there, especially in TT mode. You can drive default packages extremely lightning quick, but you have to use this technique. There's no way to get the car rotated otherwise. He doesn't, I don't know if he likes it or he doesn't like it, but it's a technique. It doesn't lend itself to long race scenarios, because you basically have to be perfect with it throughout the entire course of the race, and then on top of that, it'll add tire wear complications, especially in the rear. If you're braking it free like that to get rotation every single corner, eventually your rear tires are going to be a lot hotter than you would want, and then you're going to wind up just spinning using this technique if you keep using force. So I can understand why it's frustrating, but people had to do it to be fast with it because they didn't know how to fix the car setup wise to be fast without it.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with him, but so the point is in Automobilista 2, you're having to get onto the grip to rotate. Like, you're having to do, you're having to get to the limit of the tyres to get the turning. So I mean, I don't know with this. So the fundamental thing here is, like, I have not seen a single video with and driven a car in Automobilista 2, regardless of setup, where you have that subtle lift-off oversteer, regardless of setup. So I 100% agree with what he just said there. If you've got the brake bars really far back and you're going onto the rear of the tyres to turn in all the time, obviously it's going to heat them up. It's a good point to make. But it's like, well, how else do you get the cars to actually really turn in? I mean, even also, if you have a more neutral brake bias in AMS2, you're then having to, you're dabbing and riding on the brake to get it to turn in. This was also in Project Cars 2 as well. You'd like, in a sense, you'd be like, oh, well, do I need to? I push the brake and the accelerator at the same time. Like, it's just like, maybe that is realistic. As I've not driven these cars, I don't know for sure, but In no other racing simulator are the cars as reluctant to turn in, regardless of setup. Like if you have like a baseline setup, or an esport driver gives you a setup, or you've got a good setup or whatever, no other driving simulator is as reluctant as Automobilista 2 for the vehicle to turn in. Yeah, that's the point.
Let's move forward.
And even then, and I'm pretty sure other, and then come off
The other varieties, you don't see it with the GT3R that much, and that's in real life. And that's because of the natural balance of the car. Now, some cars will have lift-off oversteer, some don't. And it really depends on the weight transfers of the car. When you're leaning on the fronts, it's going to, the fronts are going to dig in and give you more.
Well, I mean, so again, the thing is, so I'm getting the impression, so obviously at the start of the video, he seems to think that there is lift-off oversteer in Automobilista 2. The only situation where I would say that there's definitely there's snap oversteer and snap lift-off oversteer, but the only time that the oversteer really occurs is when you've already like massively turned the steering. It's like, as I also point out in the video later on, it's from the steering wheel that's causing it, rather than from the mass of the vehicle causing it. So, as an example, if you're driving in any other simulator, you could turn the wheel like a little bit, like throw the car in, and then lift off, and you've got the weight of the car and it all moves in and everything. Whereas in Automobilista 2, it'd be like, well, instead of doing that, you just turn your wheel, like drive it like a trolley or something. It's like the method of driving in Automobilista 2 is so different to the other simulators with the cars that have open diff settings. Maybe it's right. Maybe that's what real cars are like. I don't know, but it's not like that in any other simulator, and I wouldn't think real cars would drive like that myself. But that's the thing, on as well. So, I mean, I think I don't want everyone to die of boredom watching this, because he's probably making. It seems like he's making reasonable points about actual car setup stuff that might be true. I wouldn't know. I would have to. I don't know intuitively, or from playing Automobilista 2, or from real life. I would have to try the setup and actually try it, and I'll be like, yeah, I agree or I disagree. But let's assume that what you're saying about setups is true. For all, there's no reason why it wouldn't necessarily be true. That's all fine. So, I mean, you can watch this video and you're probably going to learn about car setups a lot better than what you'd learn from my channel. But that's kind of beside the point to the issue at hand of my video, which is mostly just highlighting how lacking the subtle lift-off oversteer is. I guess he would contend with, it's just down to car setup. Well, I don't know. The best thing I can do is maybe we can get him to. Maybe you can send us. He send us a car setup. Send me with a car setups, Mr. Lightning Bolt Steel27. Send me car setups with lift off oversteer, or give instructions for it, and we'll test it out and we'll see. We will lift off steer conspiracy, and if it's there, fantastic. I'll share it with everyone. And I will declare that I was totally wrong about lift-off oversteer in Automobilista 2, which I would really be glad to, because I like the package of Automobilista 2. It's not like I'm hunting for excuses to not play it. It's like, well, I want to play it. It's just something that stood out to me.
Right.
iRacing.
That's good.
iRacing's braking.
Car that.
Let's go for the Ginetta Super Cup, why not? Get back
boy.
on the track here. So, one of the really challenging aspects of Automobilista 2 is...
I like how he casually picked this car, too. Like, he casually picked the Porsche. Like, I'm going to pick up the worst car on the worst track for understeer. And then the car that has a spec suspension, he's like, has brake problems. You think?
I would say... Right, so, I get what he's saying. I should have done a better job with presenting the video. You know, this was a very lazy video. I'm not defending that. There obviously are better cars to demonstrate this, what I was doing in the video. My video could have been a lot better, you know, obviously. But again, I'm not saying that what I say in this video is not based off these two cars. It's like, I'm talking from such a higher level of, you know, I'm not being nitpicky. It's like really pronounced. It's like the global physics handling characteristics. It's like when I complain about iRacing, it's over the limit handling is not like a subtle nitpicky thing. Like, you could be subtly nitpicky about certain aspects of iRacing's handling characteristics, maybe how the tyres wear out, the tyre temperatures. There's loads of things, especially like on a really competitive esports level, where you could be very, very nitpicky. But I'm not good enough to, well, first of all, I don't care about that nitpickiness because I just want close racing with people, with friends and stuff, or just to be generally competitive with people at a basic level, you know, just have fun. So, and it's like if the car drives generally like a car, I'm happy. You know what I mean? That's the point, is I'm not being like hyper picky. This is why I love games like Wreckfest, like Dirt Rally 2 and God knows what. And that's why I play a lot of different driving simulators, and I'm a lot more tolerant of the different driving simulators than I think even a lot of sim racers are. In terms of the amount of time I put into different simulators, because if it drives generally like a car, or it's even if it's unrealistic, but it's fun, that's all I care about, really, you know. So that's that rebuttal to that. But he does have a point. My video is pretty rubbish, and the car choices could have been better. So, you know, it's not as challenging. Keep this in very point when you push all crazy.
Actually, adding any value to the conversation, the fact that he.
Then you get into wish-washy rotational crazy land.
Okay, so I appreciate the fact that he's demoing the car. It's certainly entertaining, but I don't know if what he's doing is actually adding any value to the conversation. And I believe he's in test day, so coming out of the pits, he's doing a break.
Yeah, he's making a point. I can't argue with that. He's totally correct. But to be fair, does any of my content add any value to the conversation? But he's 100% right there. I should have done better. I should have picked better cars. I'm sorry. Apologise. Guilty. So, you know, I totally agree with him.
The setup of a car, unless you're going at a competition rate, like, you cannot judge it based off of just like, oh, I just pulled out of the pits.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But this video isn't about just pulling out the pits. And I'm pretty sure what he's going to say next. But like, yeah, if you're really going to evaluate a car in any depth or realistically, it needs to be in the right track conditions. You know, you need to have done for me personally, I need to have done 7+ hours in that car, probably more on the given track. And you need to have got to a point where you can do a lap repeatedly within like 1/10, probably even less than that. But that's before, you know, that. I mean, to defend myself a little bit. Again, I'm not talking about subtleties. We're talking about something massively, obviously different in AMS2 to other simulators. You know, well, you know.
And whoa, look at how weird the car feels. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what he's saying. As I say, I think that's just my video was presented terribly, so that's what's led to that. But there's no disagreement there.
Actually, it can be explained with physics. Spec springs and spec just set your.
They're a lot more stable. And especially with the original Assetto Corsa, it's a lot easier to modulate that brake of the limit on slower speed corners and hold the car in a very nice little happy slide. Whereas,
okay, so again, the default setups for those games is on point. ACC has a widget that allows you to pressure and camber your tires appropriately for any track just by like doing a couple laps and pulling in the pit, and then boom, you know, you just set your pressures and they're perfect. AMS2 doesn't have that, and a lot of people don't adjust their brake pressure. I'm sorry, not their brake pressure, their tire pressure or their camber. And like, why am I talking about that with brakes? Doesn't make sense. right? No, what we're talking about is grip levels here. Grip level changing, and especially in mid corner. When he's braking or trail braking deep into a corner, he's saying that the car is acting wonky. A complicating factor on top of that is that the Ginetta has spec springs and spec damping packages. So like you really have no control over the weight transfer. So any grip level change is going to shift the weight of the car. It's going to start wobbling and it's transferring load to different tires and the pressures of the tires could be off or wrong and the camber like so it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So I 100% agree with Gamer here that this is a phenomenon in AMS2. 100%. But I don't necessarily agree that it's a physics issue. It actually it can be explained with physics.
Yes, I mean it's a good point, and it's a really good point with the default setup thing. It's like all driving simulators need to make sure that there is a baseline setup. Ideally, what ACC did is really good. Is that you have a aggressive and a non-aggressive default setup. And then they should be for a driver that can drive or puts time into it. They should be something that's vaguely, they might not be perfect, but they're in the ballpark of what you generally expect to get an okay handling car. Put it that way. And yeah, fair enough. The default setups in AMS2, I don't even know if there are the ones out of the box. I think they might have done the approach that used to be the case with iRacing and some other sims, where it was like the default setup was like the factory setup, which would often just be like absolutely mental. Only recently, iRacing has started to include specific setups for each car and track for like events and things, or just the fixed setup events and what have you. So yeah, no, obviously. But again, this video is my fault for making a terrible video, but I'm sort of just driving while I was talking about things that I've noticed it's inherent to all the vehicles, like it's an overall physics characteristic. So sure, there might be a load of subtle stuff going on with the car physics and reasons as to why one car's more or less squirrely, or caster settings, or tyre pressures, or suspension settings, or all the multitude of things which will cause a more or less reactive car in various situations and conditions. Those are all like more more like subtle things. When I'm saying these things, I'm talking about very high level, based off driving all the content and also using decent setups that have been given to me by AMS2 fanboys and fast racers. So that's the thing. If you look at it from that perspective, then it's like, oh, actually, yeah, I either agree or disagree with what you're saying, Gamer Muscle. But yeah, in the case of this video, it's a crap. My video's a crap video. He's got a point in the case of this video. Things get very, very.
So these are high level cars. They may seem accessible, but they're very different, and they require different driving techniques. But the good thing about if you master one of these things or become relatively good at it, those techniques don't leave you. You can go take them to another car and use them to really great effect, including GT3s. So let's move on.
What was that about?
When the rears, dampers, and back.
Really absurdly precise on your braking, specifically in low speed corners.
Yes.
Now I know some people will go
with spec cars, the Ginetta G55, the Ginetta G40, Porsche Cups, anything spec, anything you come across when the dampers and the springs are grayed out, I'd be suspicious. Those things are going to be wobbly. You're going to have to learn weight transfers in the cars, and when the fronts are loaded up, when the rears are loaded up, being able to manipulate that with your brake and throttle inputs, braking and throttling at the same time, gradually coming off of the throttle, or pounding it, or vice versa. So these are high level cars. They may seem accessible, but they're very different, and they require different driving techniques. But the good thing about if you master one of these things or become relatively good at it, those techniques don't leave you.
Okay, well, so the problem with that is like he's almost saying that as if, oh, Gamer Muscle, you can't drive. Now, I'm not disputing. I'm not a very good driver, and the driving in this video was crap. So fair enough if he's just basing it on that. But it's like I literally know real world drivers that are high level like they've set the pace in various cars in real life that are at pace with champion Formula 1 drivers, like people in F1. So I know drivers in real life that literally use Assetto Corsa with various vehicles to train to drive specifically for real wheel like they're like, yeah, this actually lines up exactly as I'd expect, and they're top pro level drivers. And I've done driving with really skilled drivers as well, and they've gone, yeah, no, look, you obviously know how to handle the car, you know how to drive. This is where you're slow and this is where you're good. I've had consultancy from very high level drivers on my driving technique, and it is, for me personally, it's not hitting brake points appropriately. I don't get on the brake hard enough initially a lot of the time, or I have to spend a lot of time practicing it to actually do it consistently. It takes me a long time to start to do that baseline hitting the apexes. They're sort of my three big problems. But my fundamental driving and balancing the car and holding the car at the limit and drifting and all that stuff, I'm fine at that. The stuff that most people actually struggle with, weirdly. Like most people actually, because you can learn all the other things through just repetition. A lot of people get that a lot quicker than me. It takes me 7+ hours to get up to pace, as I say, because I don't know if maybe this is common for like more people with dyslexia. Those binary aspects of driving are a lot harder than the sort of organic reactive parts. I don't know. That'd be interesting to know if that's the case for dyslexics and just different learning methodologies. Anyway, again, my video was crap. I can understand why he's come to that conclusion, but I don't have a problem with other sims, and I'm generally pretty good at reacting to cars, so I don't think it's a counter argument. It's very easy for anyone to go, oh, you just can't drive, so what you're saying is incorrect. Now, there's a degree of validity to that argument. If someone can't drive the car and they're reviewing a simulator and they're saying, oh, it's terrible, this does this does that, and they genuinely are not driving consistently, well, it's actually fair to say, well, you're not actually in a position to really review that, because you're not, it's like that Cuphead game review video where the guy complete the first level. So there is a degree of validity to that argument. But I would say in my case, it doesn't entirely apply, totally, but it does in some cases to me, because I'm not a very good driver in many ways. But it's not a blanket counter argument, which is what it's often used for. So that's my contention to that point. Keep going.
You can go take them to another car and at a G.
Back of the car, if you can control. Oh, he says you can go and take it to another car. It's like, yeah, that's the great thing with sims. You once you've learned how to generally handle a car and got around the feel of it, and that each sim's different with its weirdo physics and force feedback and stuff. That's nice with sims, though, that you can apply a lot of the stuff across the simulators. Unfortunately, you don't seem to be able to apply this stuff to the same extent from AC Race Room ACC to AMS2. And this is where I tend to find, this is where you can't, so it's not fair to go, well, because, how do you sum this up clearly? So one sim, you might have a single sim that actually does something very well, and so it's different from the other simulators, but correctly different. In which case, all the other sims will do it differently, and that one sim's got it right. So, fine. But generally, I think it's more often the case that if you have one thing that's very different in one simulator compared to all other simulators, typically that's because that one simulator's got some problem with it. I mean, that seems to be more often the case. So with iRacing again, the way the cars are over the limit is literally like they just keep in a slide, the tyre stays superheated, and they go absolutely mental floppy, like way worse than Automobilista 2, way worse than any other simulator. Why is it then that Race Room, R Factor 1, AC, ACC, Automobilista, every other simulator doesn't do that? Well, I think it's more likely that iRacing has it wrong as opposed to every other simulator, So when it comes to something that massively stands out in Automobilista 2, I think it's more likely that Automobilista 2 has it wrong rather than every other simulator. When you get on the brakes, it's slowing down enough, you shouldn't.
Saying what his issue is here. So I think he was reading an answer to a different question. So I would say brake bias is you move it forward if you're having trouble, keeping the back end of the car under max braking, keeping the back end of the car behind you. If you move your brake bias too far backwards and you're not spinning out, you're not braking hard enough. The brake pressure is you're basically your foot and your brake pressure in the game are intertwined. So you could be the type of braker that likes a really high brake pressure and you like to lightly tap the brakes, or uh, it'll be in effect just like what he said. It's going to depend. It's going to, so long as you're
I
at
think
that limit.
I think we agree with that. To be honest, I don't think there's any argument there. Like, it's just going over brake pressure and why you'd set brake bias further back. I don't think there's a disagreement on that.
Done this with the default solution. Aim is
It's actually
pairing here.
relatively and that. Yeah. But if I'm skipping through this, guys, and looked how long this video is. Make.
So you can't say it's madness. It's just it's setup. Well, every simulator has a different tire model, and the AMS2 the model isn't based off of madness. It's a completely different model. So you can't say it's madness. It's just it's setup.
Well, actually, I know. So I get what he's trying to say there, but from my understanding, I could be wrong here. I'm pretty sure that the Automobilista 2 is using the Seta tire model, which they've adjusted and they've done their own things to it. I did a video early on explaining why, so when it comes to physics engines, so first of all, you have your graphics engine, and you have physics and graphics engine are normally separated, pretty much always separated. So in some cases, you will have a graphics engine and the physics engine might change. So a previous developer with ACC, it's using Unreal Engine. Well, it doesn't play like Unreal Tournament, does it? It's got its own. It's using like Assetto Corsa, Kunos physics within the Unreal Engine. With Project Cars 2, they're using the Madness graphics engine, but I'm pretty sure they're using the SMS Seta tire model. Based off how the cars drive and handle, clearly there's characteristics in Automobilista 2 that are similar to Project Cars 2. I'd say it does drive differently, but the the steering authority, the abrupt nature on the brakes, and the diff settings is stuff that you noticed in Project Cars 2. Now, I'm not completely saying Project Cars 2's Seta tire model, or whichever tire model it was they were using, was terrible. I didn't actually mind Project Cars 2 in many ways. I quite enjoyed it. We streamed it a lot. A lot of people think, oh, well, you hate Project Cars 2. A lot of people default to hating Project Cars 2. I actually quite enjoyed lots of it. But in this case, I'm pretty sure Reza are using the underlying physics engine in parts of it that was developed by Slightly Mad Studios. They'll be replacing bits and bobs on it. They'll be tuning it, tweaking it. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. Just because they've used the same underlying physics engine, even if they've used the same set of tire model, doesn't mean that it will necessarily handle the same, though, because as you've probably driven terrible mod cars in whatever simulator, you could have a mod car that's absolutely amazing, better than any other car that's in the sim, and you can have a mod car that doesn't drive like a car. So the physics engine is also, in addition to the physics engine tire model and stuff being separate, the actual implementation of the cars is another huge factor. So, but in the case of Automobilista 2, I'm pretty sure it's using the Seta tire model, but they've done a fair bit of work on it, and either improved it or changed it, depending on how you look at it.
That's just what it is. But it's a very complicated modeling system, arguably a lot more complicated.
Yes, I mean, I think he's probably going to say that, like, I just cut him off and tell him what he's going to say. One of the issues with so the madness, the Seta tire model and the physics engine used in Automobilista 2 is very complicated. Same with like R Factor 2. The problem with that is you get a massive amount of depth and complexity and certain behaviours and maybe unified aspects of like how that tires heat up and wear, and maybe some degrees of realism that you don't get in a less complicated physics engine. But the issue with that is it can then be an absolute nightmare to actually implement a car that doesn't have some mental handling characteristic which you can't then remove, dial out or fix, because you have to keep adjusting the core underlying tire model in some rando way to address it. It's so complicated. You end up with something that's very hard to work. Maybe it was a good analogy. Okay, if you were to try and if you wanted to, you could build a reasonably looking house in Minecraft pretty quickly and passably that looks okay, right, from a distance, Obviously, Minecraft blocks are very simple. They don't really do that much. You know, there's not that much advanced stuff going on. But it could look like a house pretty quickly, pretty easily. And so if you had to build 50 types of different houses, you could probably build 50 reasonably looking okay houses in Minecraft pretty quickly. But if you were going to use 3ds Max, or like, I don't know, a game, maybe sticking with games like The Forest, or I don't know, some other game that has like lots of little intricate tiny little blocks and loads of little options you can pick and choose, and different lighting options and all this other stuff. You know, you then like, and you potentially could make a photoreal house, but it's going to take a lot longer to actually build the photoreal house, and you might not be able to get 50 of them to look as good as, on average, as the 50 houses in Minecraft within the set period of time to actually implement them. That's probably a terrible analogy, but you know, anyway, the point is, complicated tile models, complicated physics engines have potential, but also have a potential to be overly complex for the end result of having a realistically drivable car. There you go.
That could come across as routine.
Setup, and but if you have that sensitivity there, every
this video is getting a little bit long, but essentially,
yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
It's 2 videos in one. So, yeah. So, I like Gamer. Actually, you know what? Let's.
I'll subscribe to him.
Boom. I also subscribe to him on my personal account. But yeah, I like him. I really, I've watched some of his videos, some of his tutorial videos on how to set up VR with AMS2 and some other the rig settings.
That's nice.
Sorry. And I really enjoyed it. I used him as a reference a lot of times and resource for that type of thing. But as far as there's this like kick the dog kind of when it's down aspect to AMS2 right now, and I think a lot of the influencers are kind of taking advantage of it one at a time. You know, I think the most fair criticism is 604. You know, he was generally likes the game, but he, you know, I don't want to misrepresent him, but he's definitely more tactful with it. Gamers is the next in line to me, and then it was Jimmy Broadbent, and then Ehrman, as far as like how much they tried to get like to twist the knife, so to speak. But the one thing that I do notice, 604 excluded, is that these 3 video Jimmy Broadbent, Ehrman, and Gamers aren't demonstrating you know, the setup aptitude to be really to make overarching physics critiques or comparisons.
Well, so, okay, first of all, I appreciate him watching my channel, but again, as I said, I've driven cars with other setups, pro setups given to me, and these are my conclusions from from people giving me decent setups. It's not just my terrible driving. As for other YouTubers, I've not watched, I don't watch any of Jimmy's content, and I don't watch any of Ehrman's content, mostly because I just hate everyone, you know, but I didn't even know that other YouTubers, I didn't even watch 604's video. I didn't know other YouTubers had done videos on this. You know, I've been doing live streams. Every time I do live streams on AMS2 and I say, well, hang on, it looks like there is this lift-off oversteer thing, 99% of people agree, 95% seem to agree with it. Maybe they're just agreeing because they want to be agreeable, which, you know, you've got to be careful of that as a YouTuber. If God knows why anyone would like my channel, but, you know, people will generally agree with the YouTube because it's what they're subscribed to. But there'll be a couple of people that don't agree with it, and then they just repeat the same things without actually giving a counter-argument. And I just wanted to do a video so I could say, when I'm driving it, and this is what I want to do with other titles as well, when I'm driving it, live streaming, I can go, look, watch the video, that's my opinion on it, you might disagree, you can give me a counterpoint, great. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have to keep doing these conversations. Like, I'm going mental in live streams, repeating myself to try and have a conversation with the same dissented type voices without them actually providing anything. You know, it's not a malicious thing. I'm actually, and I don't think it's probably malicious from the other YouTubers. Like, generally, like personally, and I think this might probably applies. I would imagine this is the case for. I don't know Ermin at all, but I'd imagine the case with Jimmy is he's not a malicious person with the sim content stuff. So the reason I don't want to speak for Jimmy, but the reason why I would do it is that if I didn't like it at all, or I didn't think there was any potential, I literally would not play it. I would not cover it. I wouldn't talk about it. Certainly wouldn't live stream it. Something has to be pretty up there for me to be like, right, now I'm going to live stream it, because I live stream stuff for like 7+ hours. So it has to be, you know, and how many people, a lot of people don't even play a single game for 7 hours at a time. So it's not a malicious thing, and it's not twisting a knife. And also, I get what his perspective on it though, and I can see how it can be perceived like that. Also, the more the lives you have, YouTubers, even if they're idiots, right or wrong, the more they talk about it, the more visibility the game gets, and the more triggered the fanboys of the title get. And actually, in a sense, that's advertising and does grow the game. And even more importantly, if the game does actually improve and they keep developing on it, eventually, you're probably from YouTubers that aren't like just being haters. They will do a video going, oh, this is massively improved, like next time they pick it up, and then that gets a whole load of people playing it again that wouldn't have otherwise played it, which has happened. That's what's happened with Race Room, for example, on a couple of occasions. I think that happened with the original Automobilista 2, Automobilista. I think that's happened with iRacing as well. You know, with me personally, I literally had banished iRacing, and then some stuff had improved on it, and IIFFB made me get back into it, which then has caused people to pick it up that otherwise wouldn't. Yeah, so it's not really a malicious thing. I mean, it's quite clear if you watch my channel that I'm a fan of Reza as well, and I do like a lot of aspects of Automobilista 2, and I recommend it quite often.
Persons. In fact, I think that all three of them get their... I don't even know where they get their setups, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, so the setup thing, again, as I say, I've used decent setups, so I don't think it's a valid counter-argument.
With you, and I remember Ermin posted a video a long time ago where he got a setup for somebody, he liked it. So there are improvements to be made. I'm not sure what Gamer's done. That being said, that's my thoughts on this video.
Well, there you go. Right, that is it. I'm sorry to what's his bloody channel name again? 27 Lightning Bolt, Steel Lightning Bolt. Sorry for skipping through what he's saying, and sorry if I've misinterpreted anything you said. Just call me out on that if I have. I think the real solution to this, from the argument he's making, as I say, the only real solution is send me your setup that you think addresses the lift-off oversteer. that's it, and then we can talk about that. Again, I massively appreciate him taking the time to go through my video and deconstruct it. Like, from my perspective, that's mental. I really am just an idiot in a sim rig that has I'm opinionated, and but I'm opinionated. Who would have thought? I mostly do this because I like the humour side of stuff. I'm not that heavily invested in which sim is best or worst, or like the intricacies of physics and stuff. I do like close racing, but my main thing is I just like stuff that's funny, and I like having conversations and things. So yeah, so I really appreciate him watching it and doing his video. So go and check out his channel if you haven't, like I said at the beginning. Let me know in the comments if you think my rebuttals of points were okay or whatever you think. But that's about it, guys. That is a good, solid 58 minutes of your time wasted. If you got to the end of this, type in the bottom, please help me. I've wasted my life watching terrible YouTube content. What am I doing? What am I doing? Please, God help me. But I should have warned you to make at least 5 cups of tea for that one. But, you know, until the next one, guys, and until our next Automobilista 2 stream, and until we'll get a setup from him, I'll type a message to him and get a setup off him. Until then, thank you very much for watching this. I'll accept a guilty verdict on myself, but I think he's also guilty as well, but mostly because my video was terrible. But until the next one, happy tea drinking. Goodbye, everybody.